Well, hello, everybody, and hello, Chad. How was your week this week, Chad?
I feel like I'm working in a paper hanging factory this week. So I've been doing a lot of extra because the family is attempting. Don't know if we'll be successful yet or not, but we're attempting to take a trip, take some time off, and in order for that to happen, since I'm the only dude, I got to work double or even triple before, so that we soften the blow of Chad just not being around.
Saving up them dollars. And then not only that, but like you said, since you're the main squeeze at the Kansan, then you have to do a bunch of work in advance to make sure that work is done.
That's exactly what I was talking about. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Right. So, I basically have to have a week and a half of stuff just done, ready to roll, because there's nobody else to do it. So
I got a question for you, Chad. Have you ever just done that in an effort to be able to go home, close the door, and not have to mess with nothing or nobody that doesn't require you to have to go anywhere or do anything?
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, the job is big enough that when you are going to be doing what I'm doing right now, honestly, you don't want to do that very often.
Yeah.
And because I work multiple jobs, there's no payoff for me to
scooch on out of here.
Right. I mean, it actually comes out because, not all the jobs come with paid time off, right? Yeah. So, if I'm gone, I don't get paid.
Yeah. And
so there you go. I mean, it is what it is. Now the Kansan, we got paid time off. It's I don't have to worry about that, but
what's paid time off when you're talking about being a salaried employee, really?
It's nothing.
Yeah, because you're not technically getting paid. You're just being able to be comped for hours to be gone where you're not required to be there for your salary without getting in trouble, of course.
Exactly. I'm working in advance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I'm working extra so that I don't have to work so much later.
And I bet you if something was to happen, not to say that, you should pre-plan for any kind of disasters, but if something happens, can you really go to your employer and say, it was my PTO? I've worked salary job. I know. When I was a manager for Dollar General, if anything
there are things I can do. I mean, and straight up, I will probably, if I'm successful in going somewhere, I know, for example, that Tuesday I'll work. Period. Doesn't matter if I'm quote PTO'd or not.
Yeah.
I'll be working on Tuesday because there's going to be a county commission meeting. And, I at least have to watch it.
Yeah.
And I have to check it out. And I have to make sure that, I know what's going on. And so I'll work that day for sure.
Well,
and also this time around, filing deadline for county commission is Monday?
Monday at 12.
So, I'll be on Tuesday. I'll be checking through all those filings and probably putting something together and whatever else. And it doesn't matter where I'm at in the world. Those are things I just got to do.
Yeah.
I just got to do it.
Yeah. It's got to be done, and it's got to be on time. Yeah. And speaking of county commission meetings, I attended the last 3 days of budget hearings. This is the first round. So for people that don't really understand this process, it's when all of the different entities and departments come in, and I hate to call it a wish list. Okay, it's not necessarily a wish list, but it's the first hit across the court, to say, this is what we're asking for. This is why we're asking for what we're asking for. Whether it's more or less, they usually break those down into a few different categories. And just for a lot of people, it's not something that they just, turn on, get a bag of popcorn, and watch 8 hours worth of budget, sessions. But truth, there is a lot of information that it can be acquired by doing this. So if you're an individual citizen, the Harvey County Commission, all of the entities, the main ones especially that we have here in Harvey County, record it. So you can go back and you can watch it, and you can sit there and turn it on and watch your 24 hours worth of different entities that come up, from law enforcement to the Harvey County Health Department to the Historical Society. I mean, it's all there, and just see what they're asking for and why they're asking for it. Generally speaking, there's not a whole lot of questions that come from the commission at this point in time, or at least there shouldn't be. It's more of a getting this information. The way our commission's designed, you take that information home and you probably have 40 hours, I would say, if you're doing the job right, of going through and really getting meticulous about why they're asking for it, what last year's were, what this year is, projection, what they said during the meeting, maybe even go back and review some of the things in case you got it missed, whatever the case may be. But there can be a lot learned from that, Chad. And I'll tell you, there's some few departments that really are hurting right now. I mean, they're hurting, and I don't mean to monologue here, but something that consistently came up and continues to come up, if it doesn't matter whether it's the city, doesn't matter whether it's a school board, doesn't matter what public entity we're talking about when it comes to budgeting season right now, right, is everything costs more today than what it cost yesterday, and everything costs 10 times as much as it did a year ago.
And contractual services continue to go up. I
mean, 1%, 3%, 5%. And, it was just this continuous understanding that, look, a gallon of gas cost, a good one that I saw today was Noxious Weeds Director Rex. I can't think of what his last name is, but he came in and he was talking about, for the most part, we don't need any more money this next year over last year. But that's pretty much anybody's guess. And the reason why is because we don't control the cost of chemicals. And
Correct.
Depending upon demand, I mean, that's one thing. Let's say there's a hiccup in the chain of being able to get what we need when we need it, then that all of a sudden becomes something that has a lot more value. Right? So if you go to McDonald's, a good way to explain this, you go to McDonald's and every day you can get your Egg McMuffin meal, okay? Your sausage Egg McMuffin meal. Well, all of a sudden when sausage is hard to come by, that sausage Egg McMuffin is going to cost you more money because the demand is up. So not to monologue on that, but man, there's just so much going on in all of these different entities right now that have a lot to do with budgeting. And then,
it's budget season. It's budget season.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's the same time every year, and this is it. And this is when everybody's doing their, quote, budget hearings. And just so people understand, when you hear somebody say the county's having a budget hearing, that doesn't mean that it's time for you to go talk about it. What they're doing is they are hearing from all of their department heads.
That's right.
And their department heads have prepared a budget proposal, and they are going in and they are discussing that budget proposal with the powers that be, right? And that's the season that we're in. And if you want to dive into that pool, go right ahead, but be ready because it is hours and hours and hours and hours of time.
Yep.
To dive into that.
Yep.
And sometimes you may not get to or even hear what it is you really want to hear.
Yeah.
Because it is just literally, it is somebody saying, we think that the price of gas is going to go up to X amount, so we've budgeted more for that in this account. Yeah. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, and then you even get to it costs more to employ people.
Yes.
Insurance. Let's say me and you work for Harvey County Talk. We both have an insurance package through Harvey County Talk, and our insurance company decided, hey, due to the cost of commodities and due to the cost of healthcare, you guys are getting a 10% increase. You're going to have to pay 10% more. Well, what does Harvey County Talk do with that? You pay the 10% more. There's not much of another option.
So, very real. I mean, you bring up insurance. The cost of insurance for the employees of my company went up by 50% last year.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wonder how often is this happening, Chad, because it can't just be your company.
Oh, it's everybody. It's everybody. And
the cost of healthcare is skyrocketing.
No, it's not. That's a misnomer. It's not health care.
Okay.
It's health insurance.
Okay. I stand corrected. The cost of having health insurance is skyrocketing.
Yes. And we are, oh man, how far down the rabbit hole you want me to go?
I don't know. We did this a couple weeks ago when we talked about Medicaid expansion.
We're in a really weird spot in this country because we have spent the last 20 years debating the cost of health care. And that the entire time, what we've really been talking about is health insurance and what health insurance is doing to the healthcare industry.
Yeah.
That's really what we're talking about.
Uh-oh. You're going to have healthcare companies on on us now.
Fine, let them come. I'm tired of their extortion. And they're not just extorting us.
Us, everybody.
They're hosing doctors too. Yeah. I mean, there's not a human being in the United States today that has not been screwed by their health insurance company. Yeah. Period. End of story.
Okay, quick question, Chad. If this has always been something that I find very interesting. A lot of people talk about the role of government. Okay,
sure.
The government should or should not be involved in X, Y, Z, PDQ. Okay, so we've gotten to this place in our society where government is very involved in our health care. Okay, from setting regulations to what can and can't be done, when it can and can't be done. I mean, it's just not a free for all. I can't go into my doctor today and say, I'm tired of being left-handed. I don't like being left-handed, so I just want you to cut it off. They're not going to let you cut off a freely, a good hand, okay? And then your insurance pay for that's not going to happen, right? So when you talk about the role of government, do you personally think that for people that are unable to afford their health care, that the government should step in for the public good and provide adequate health care to people on the taxpayer dime?
Yes.
Love that.
I'll go one step further. I think it is an appropriate governmental exercise for single payer health care. Single payer health insurance.
We're going to start throwing out nasty words now.
Yep. You better believe it. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Our Constitution, and oh boy, the way places I can go this week on this. Our Constitution states that we are to ensure for the general welfare of our population. Don't believe me? Look it up. The general welfare of our population. Are you kidding me? With telling me that it is not the government's role and that we constitutionally should not be involved in healthcare? Constitutionally, the government has every right to do so. And let me tell you something. I have heard all of the arguments against this. And over and over and over again, I sit and go, we have lived this out. Okay? Here's one. In Canada, you got to wait forever to see your doctor.
That's not necessarily true.
Well, not only is it not true, but my own son, we had to set an appointment for him, and we set it with a Wichita doctor. We had to set an appointment for him. It's a specialist. And we set that appointment in, February, March, at the end of February.
Still waiting, aren't you?
And it was supposed to be yesterday, but something popped up with my daughter, so we had to reschedule his appointment that was supposed to be yesterday.
2 months. 2 months later, a bit.
You know where we're scheduled for now?
August.
October.
Oh no. Tell
me again we're not waiting for doctors.
Okay.
I mean, come on.
I'm going to throw a jab. The Constitution, for a lot of people, the Constitution today is just like the way they want to interpret their own holy book. And it's that, well, I want to make the Constitution applicable when it's good for me.
That's correct.
But I don't want to adhere to the Constitution if it might go against what my beliefs are.
Yeah, whatever.
Hey, I'm telling you, I've heard argument. I'm a constitutionalist, okay?
Go establish your theocracy somewhere else, please.
I wasn't going there. I would even say that like something that and we're going off topic here because of course this is not Harvey County specific, but I'm a fan of the Convention of States. Always have been. You not? That's fine. I am. That's okay. It's not worth us going to blows over, but it's very interesting the hypocrisy that some people will invoke when they say a convention of the states is not constitutional. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but it's written right there in the Constitution in black and white. So whether you agree with that being the way in which we try to affect change at our governmental level is an opinion, but it still is constitutional. So give me something, Chad. I know you're chomping at the bit to talk about something that I don't really want to talk about, to be totally honest.
Don't know what that would
be. Because we're on some constitutional talk like we're constitutionalists.
Well,
and I am a fan of the Constitution, and we should have a convention of the 10th Amendment.
If I have anything to say here, it's this. And I made a comment to a civics teacher yesterday that I think needs to be repeated, because we have far too many constitutionally illiterate folks around. Now, illiterate is kind of a big word, and it's kind of a nasty word. It just means that you haven't read it in a while.
Like obstinately ignorant?
Whatever. It just means you haven't read it in a while. That's all I'm saying. Okay, I'm not saying you can't read. I'm not saying you've never read it. I'm saying you just haven't read it in a while. All right? I mean, seriously. And that is coupled with a whole bunch of people who confuse the Declaration of Independence with the Constitution. And I'll go back in time a number of years. At one time, I spent about 18 months working for Harvey County as a volunteer coordinator. I mean, it was just the environment that was at the Kansan at that time for me was extremely toxic. I was not being treated fairly by other people and people in managements. I truly believed that it was a gender issue. Okay. All right. And believe me, folks, gender issues do exist for white men. They really truly do. We've been at the top of the food chain for a really, really long time. And I own that. And I believe that. But that does not mean that there are some of us that have not been victimized. And at that time, that's what I was feeling. It's what I was feeling. So I felt like I just had to leave. And I did. And I went and worked for the county. During that time, I started walking around to different county offices, and I would quote something, and I would say things like, "Is that from the Constitution?" And over again, "Oh yeah, that's in like." No, it wasn't. I'm quoting the Declaration of Independence. So we have confusion.
Yeah.
Why is all of that important? Because when I hear this is just a pet peeve. When I hear someone quoting the Declaration of Independence or crediting the Declaration of Independence as being law, it angers me to no end, because the Declaration of Independence is not law. The Declaration of Independence is a declaration of war.
Yeah.
It is a foundational document. I will give you that. But if you really want to know what we are founded on and what our foundation truly is, that is in the Constitution.
Yes.
If you want to know what rights we are guaranteed by our nation, that is in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
The Declaration of Independence guarantees you nothing because it is a declaration of war.
Okay, I got a question, because we're just going to go here. Okay, sorry everybody if you were looking for Harvey County Talk specific stuff this week.
We're going to get to some. I've got some stuff written down.
Okay, but I've long since believed, even from when I was a youth, okay, and having a true affinity for government and history, theology. I mean, most people, it bores them to death, but these are the things in which I love to read about. Some people like to read about, a nonfiction book. They like to read a fantasy book. They like to do these things. And I'm somebody that wants to get into the meat and potatoes of government dynamics of one country, global politics, you name it. Okay. So fascinated by this, always have been. And I almost would like to say that it's a deliberate attempt, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but a deliberate attempt by our own government to remove education of our children, or to our children, through the educational system in order to protect themselves. Go back and look. Let's go back and look in history. Go back further than 1776. Let's go back. Let's go back 1500s, 1600s. Go back wherever you want. Well, people couldn't even read at that point in time, Chad.
Bingo. And they were ignorant.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't. Okay? Yeah. They were not educated. That is the very definition of ignorant.
Well, look at what mm-hmm.
And what else were they? What were they for governments at that time?
Peasants.
Easy to control.
Yeah.
Okay?
Slaves,
all right?
In some cases.
I mean, I hate pointing fingers at some of the people that I got to point fingers at because, my ancestors got killed for this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that again. My ancestors got killed for this stuff.
Well, people were getting killed over interpretation of the Bible until the independence of America.
Well, there's if you go back and you look within the Catholic Church, there was a time period they didn't want people to have Bibles.
No.
They didn't want them to read it for themselves.
Yeah.
Why? Because ignorant people are easy to control.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
and
if you're a Catholic and I just ticked you off, sorry.
Well, I'll put it in
guess
a way,
what? You guys killed my ancestors over this stuff.
And let's take this too. Is there some truth to the fact that the early church, Catholics, did not want for there to be individuals to be allowed to try to interpret the scriptures on their own? Because if it was not interpreted correctly, okay, then how much division, animosity, and trouble can come of individuals who are knifing themselves and each other to death over what the Bible does and doesn't say. In America, at one point we had 36,000 plus denominations.
Let's just put it to you this way: that I am very hesitant to argue a whole lot of theology with Catholics and Protestants. You know why?
You tell me, Chad.
The Martyr's Mirror is why. Those are my ancestors in there. And we argued theology. And we said baptism is for people who are old enough to make a conscious decision. And when you make that conscious decision, if you're 16, you're 17, you're 18, that's when we're going to baptize you. We got killed for that.
Yeah, you're going to die for that, Chad.
We got killed for that.
It's not funny. I'm not laughing because this is, but it's almost senile that we would. It's asinine. It's truly asinine.
And
when
what
you
else
look back into history of what
else was that? So I'm going to try and kind of circle back around to some of this conversation that we've already had. In addition to being killed over theology, what else was that? That was government sanctioned, and that was theocracy. That's what that was.
Which before the United States...
I'm going to state something for you here, okay? You love me, hate me, I don't care. The First Amendment that everyone loves to cite, everyone, is about making sure that theocracy does not become the law of the United States.
That is one of the main reasons that the United States was formed.
You know who I just ticked off? The Protestants. That's who I just angered. So please don't come to my house and behead me. Okay? We're not living in the 1600s here. We're living in 2024. But that was a theocracy. Okay?
Yeah.
And the elephant in the room, the thing that you don't want to talk about, is what happened on Tuesday in this city and what was set up through online debates on Thursday, Wednesday of last week. Online debates that got removed. They were so, what's the word I'm looking for?
Bad.
Yeah, bad is a good word. I mean, disappointing in how people were treating each other. Okay?
Yeah.
And so then you go to Tuesday and our city has decided to proclaim, and please, I'm going to publish the entirety of the proclamation in the Kansan on Saturday. Okay? So buy a copy. Seriously. To proclaim a Pride Month. They didn't say they were going to put on a parade. They didn't say they were going to take any action of any kind other than saying, oh, by the way, guys, Pride Month if you want to celebrate. I mean, seriously. And all throughout that process, we witnessed debate and debate and debate. And all throughout that process, we witnessed confusion over the Declaration of Independence and what it is. And the fact is that it actually doesn't really guarantee anybody anything. I mean, seriously, it just doesn't. We witnessed decision makers who either voted in such a way that shows that they want a theocracy, or very publicly said, I'm going to pinch my nose and I'm going to vote for this. Okay? And quite honestly, neither position is one that I'm really that okay with. All right? I mean, it's okay to, and one of the places that I get so angry, and straight up, I'm talking to you, Protestants. One of the places I get so angry is that, oh man, here's where the theology is coming in, okay? Go ahead, profess your Christianity. Do it. You should. That's part of the Great Commission. But you need to also live out what you are told in Scripture is the greatest law, the most important law, the one law upon which every other piece of the law rests.
To love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself.
Ding. And so straight up, loving your neighbor as yourself, that does not include embarrassing someone in public. I'm not naming names. I'm not trying to embarrass anybody. Okay? I'm just pointing out. Loving your neighbor as yourself does not include embarrassing someone in public. It doesn't include patronizing someone in public. That's not what loving your neighbor as yourself does. And those words, upon this, the rest of the law rests, you will find that in every single translation. You just have to read far enough. I mean, we've got all kinds of stuff just wrapped up in this, right? We've got religion wrapped up in this. We've got constitutional politics wrapped up in this. We've got all of it wrapped up in this.
Yeah.
Okay? We also have just the general how you treat each other wrapped up in this.
So we've lost something.
And I'm telling you what, there are a whole lot of people, and 99.9% of them do not hold a political office anywhere, that flat out failed that test miserably.
And see, that's, one of the reasons why I mentioned that I just didn't want to cover it has a lot to do with just watching how my neighbors treat my other neighbors.
And
Chad, the only thing that I got to say to everybody about this whole situation is, regardless of how you feel about the situation, regardless how we have our differences, regardless of whether we do or don't agree with somebody's lifestyle, or whether this, that, fill in the blank, was I didn't even know what was going on. And then I went to go check up on what was going on at the city because, like I said, I was in budget hearings. So I was that takes a lot out of a person mentally, to be totally honest. And I was like, why is it that everybody here is treating each other this way? It was almost so disappointing that I was just like, I saw one comment that's branded into my brain. It stuck out to me, and it still sticks out to me. And it was that it's amazing, and I'll quote this person, "It's amazing to think that 1 week ago, our entire community came together without caring whether somebody was one way, the other, black, white, not, either, indifferent. It doesn't matter. We came together when our community was in a time of need." And that was one of our community's best moments. Followed by now, this is just bringing out the worst in everybody.
It is.
And I'm not going to say everybody because, not saying that, we have however many thousands of people live in our community.
In the majority.
Is it? And see, that's another question I had, Chad.
The majority of the folks who are speaking out.
Yeah, 300 some comments. I wonder how many people have any idea that conversation in the back alley, if you want to look at it that way, because sometimes I wonder if that's not what social media really is.
Well, and straight up, dude, it's 300 comments. That's just on the city stuff. That's getting shared.
Yeah.
And it's getting shared into other groups, and in some of those other groups, the comments are numbering in the hundreds as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are talking about it. Okay. My coverage of that whole thing is coming out on Saturday. I have no idea how people are going to react. I did exactly what I'm supposed to do. I'm fair. I'm balanced. I let people know what some of the folks who supported this on the city commission said in support. Yeah. I let people know what some of the folks who didn't support this said during that meeting. And it's just all there. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the biggest disappointment is how folks are treating each other on social media.
Yeah, if you're for or against or whatever the case may be, there's got to be have some grace. Articulate what you have to say in a way that is not going to be, do your best.
And where I've been at for a lot of days.
I've covered some really tough policy issues before, Chad. You know this. And one thing I can say is that even though sometimes my words might cut someone deep because they choose to take an offense to it, I can honestly say that 9 times out of 10, lacking inflection, okay, because sometimes you can read something and it's just very matter of fact, and dependent upon how you project onto that writing what you think somebody is. It's kind of hard to be sarcastic when you're writing something, right?
Sure.
It can be lost with inflection, but I pride myself, and pride might be the wrong word to use. I pride myself honestly in the responsibility that I take in my effective capacity to be kind. Even if I disagree with you and you are throwing some stuff at me, because I've had it happen, people. I've had it happen. I've had it happen.
Yeah, we all have.
And I'll tell you, I continue to maintain my composure. I continue to make sure that I'm treating this person the way I want them to treat me, regardless of whether they're treating me this way or not.
Yeah. Well, and
I mean, forgive me when I don't. It's not often.
And this part of this conversation extends well beyond this particular issue.
Yeah. Yeah, it just keeps getting bigger. Beyond. We just keep taking this plane up and up and up, and we're at 10,000 foot view right now.
Way beyond this, you know? I mean, I had a conversation this week that was very difficult, and it was about some things that my newspaper did surrounding Memorial Day. I'll be straight, you know, and you know, it's at the end of the phone call that I had, I was very angry and very upset. And I asked myself, you know, why are you so angry? Why are you so incredibly upset? And what it came back to was, I was like, okay, so how do I fix this? Well, the person who called me wasn't interested in fixing anything. When the call started, they were not interested in fixing anything. They weren't interested in me fixing anything. They were only interested in grinding their pound of flesh. Yeah. And I felt ridiculously disrespected, belittled. I sat there and I went, I wish they could understand that I did this and this and this and this. I wish they could understand that this is how I really feel. Well, they weren't interested in any of that.
That's what I was going to say.
They
just weren't interested.
Weren't.
Yeah. They were just there to grind their pound of flesh, Chad.
They were there. That's what they wanted. Grind that pound. And they ground it. Okay? And the second phone call that came in, they wanted to grind, but then they offered to figure out how to fix it. That one didn't make me nearly as mad as the first one. Okay? And, you know, God willing, the river don't rise, and with that person's help, we're going to fix it.
You know why people are so angry?
But
I've got one for you, Chad.
But it all comes back to, you know, we are failing. We are failing. Broad parts of our population is absolutely failing that Matthew 5 test.
Yeah. It's out of fear.
It's just, and at some point, man, number one, guys like us, we got to identify that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then number two, hopefully, when we identify that and we bring this forward, that will speak into some people, and they will wake up and say, oh, yeah, I get what you're saying. The trick is, when you do that, dude, the next thing you got to do is you got to ask yourself, okay, what area do I need to change? Okay? And I'm going to tell you, there's a whole lot of people that got to change how they're handling online.
Well, I think it comes back to faith. Okay? Yeah. Let me run through this. Okay? Absolute truth here. Lack of faith leads to fear. Fear leads to worry. Worry leads to anxiety. Anxiety leads to anger. Anger leads to wrath. Wrath gives birth to death. Absolute truth. And I believe that much of the problems, the hatred, the anger that we see in our society have to do with the base instinct of fear, whether it be fear of the unknown, probably the biggest one. We can blanket a lot of stuff on that. And then from there, when you have fear that's working its way through the process, you have a constant input through digital mediums into your mind, your life, and everything else that's in the promotion of fear. Then it's very easy when you have that blanket of security to be able to be a keyboard warrior and say whatever you're going to say, because you know damn good and well that a lot of what people say, they would never say it to your face.
Oh, heck no.
And that's the interesting thing that I find is that for all the things that people have to say about me, not a one of them come up to my face and say it.
That goes back a long ways.
And then let's invoke some Christianity.
You want to talk about going back a long ways. You just go back to the days of internet message boards, man. I'm telling you what. And back in the day, as it were, I was really active on a message board that was dedicated to Wichita Thunder hockey. And there was a point where that got toxic enough that the team itself said, look, 7 o'clock Wednesday night, show up at the Ice Center, air your grievances.
Not a soul showed up, did
I did. I did. Seriously, I did.
Just to see what was going to get thrown down.
There was maybe about a half a dozen people who showed up there. Now, keep in mind, these are the days where you could do everything anonymously.
Yeah.
But, just because of how I'm cut, how I'm wired, I used my real name when I was doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
When I was ripping a referee because of the stupidity I was watching, I did that under my real name. When I was defending the team because, good Lord, they've played 3 days in a row and there's been bus trips every day and, by now they're beyond exhausted and worn out. How can we expect them to do this, and this thing? I did all of that under my real name. And so when I was ripping somebody else on the board who was posting anonymously, I did it with my real name.
Yeah.
That's because that's how I'm wired, dude. From day one of my job, it has always been letters to the editor that do not sign their names. They're worthless. They go in the trash.
So Chad,
if you got something to say, put your name on it. So I show up to this meeting. There's including me, 6 people there. It's nothing. And
that's about how commission
just
goes.
Listening to a couple of people, one of them, I identified who they were on the message board. Just listening to them during that thing, I'm like, oh, that's this guy. Didn't take long. So, that meeting went on for about an hour. Quite honestly, most of the talk came from the team representatives. And after it was over, I marched right up to a guy and I said, I'm Chad Frey. It is nice to meet you in person. And I used his screen name.
Yeah.
And he looked at me like I was from another planet. And I said, by the way, you've had a lot to say to me and about me. I'm here now. What do you have today?
He said, so you know that I'm Cherry Cat 4654?
Yes, I do. So Cherry Cat, what do you got to say to me today?
And I'm guessing there's a little awkward.
There was no awkward nothing. There was just
I was just joking, man.
No, I don't really got anything to say today. It's like, yeah, okay. Well, just understand. You've seen it posted in the boards. That's my real name. And if you use a search engine, you can find me pretty quick. Okay? And if you ever want to actually be a man and say the things that you say online to my face, you're more than welcome. And he kind of looked at me and he goes, why would I want to do that? And I looked at him and I said, because you want to be a real man. You don't want to be another one of the keyboard warriors. And you want to be a real man. Stop your hiding. And if you're not willing to say it to me, to my face, don't type it online. And that's a creed that I have lived on. I mean, if I'm not willing to, straight up, if I'm not willing to say something to somebody's face, why on earth would I put that in print or write it anywhere?
Yeah.
Why?
I tell you, Chad, in today's environment and everything that we've talked about so far and all these little situations that will just indefinitely continue to crop up, they just always will. because that's the nature of the beast, if you want to call it that. Kindness matters. I think that's the capstone for me. Kindness matters. It really does. It matters. And after I don't know, Chad. Why is it that is so difficult, and we'll just continue to go down this road? So I guess I should stop asking rhetorical questions that can probably never be answered in one setting.
If you want out of this conversation, I'm going to give it to you now, okay?
Give it up, Chad.
Here's the out.
Give it up.
So as of this moment, and again, I have a story that's publishing on Saturday about what happened at the City Commission. I had other stories that published this week about what happened at City Commission, and I've got another story about what happened at City Commission that's publishing Saturday on it as well. But I'm done with this whole thing. And personally, and I would say there are others in their community that feel just like me, I want to go concentrate on something else now.
Yeah.
And things like the fact that one of our most historic buildings and churches just got a new use and life this week. And I think that's great.
Well, tell me more.
And so, if you watch the City Commission meeting, you'll hear them talking about 12th and Logan. That's the 1877, is it 77? Yeah, meeting house. One of the very first churches ever constructed in this town.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Was until about 2018 owned by the People's Baptist Church and the late Vern Bender.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So now,
very bellowing voice.
Oh yeah. And there's a lot of people in this town that kind of laughed at Vern, and not everybody really liked Vern. Straight up, there was a day he stood in my office and he looked at me and he says, "Oh, you're Chad Frey. You're a defender of the faith." I laughed at him. In his face. I'm like, I'm nothing. I'm just a reporter from Newton, Kansas. And he's like, "Nope, you are a great defender of the faith." Well, obviously it made an impression because I remember it, and I remember it well. But, he did everything he could to try and keep that building alive, really, including in 1968 moving it from its original location to where it sits now at 12th and Logan. But it's got new ownership now, and the new ownership came around in 2018. Vern passed away, and he had a number of health problems, and he ended up in a nursing home, and straight up, the state paid for a lot of that, and then they took everything he had, and then they sold it. And the new owner has had that now for 7 years? Something like that? 6-7 years. And she now is going to do what she has done in another community, and that is she has taken a historic building that she was able to buy for a song, and over the course of the next several months, there's going to be some work done to that building. New roof is part of it, and she's going to have at least part of it dedicated to being an art gallery for her work. She's her specialty is pottery. She's from Heston. The name is escaping me, and I don't have it written down in my notes, so that's the way it works. But that's what's coming. That's the next thing for this meeting house that has served as a meeting place for I don't know how many different churches in this town. So, most of them still exist. They got founded and they moved into something else. So
yeah, that's interesting. And that's also, you said, repurposing of the building, but that's something else that's new, that's coming to our community, that is going to be something that we can enjoy. I tell you, Chad, when I look at my community, and people have something to say, and if it is negative, 9 times out of 10, I have 15 things that I could combat their negativity with that is just enjoyable about my community. I mean, people know me. I've had people say, Lance, I don't love this community as much as you do. Lance, he loves this community. He loves his community. I mean, that's one thing I'm known for is I love my community. I am a fan of Newton. I am a fan of Harvey County. I am somebody that wants to promote my community. I see the good in my community. I know that there are things that we, struggle with. I know there's things where we could do better, but I also look at how fortunate we are to be blessed to all live right where we're living right now, just to have life, to have the freedoms that we have, and to be able to wake up every day and make a difference, make a positive impact in my neighbor's life, in the person's life I see at the grocery store. In my case, I choose government, but that doesn't have to be for everybody. It could be a service or a civic organization. It could be your local church that you go to. But there's so many different ways in which we can add water to the what's growing in our community so we can see it produce fruit. And we want it to produce good fruit, Chad. Good fruit.
Wonderful way to put it.
It's the truth.
Because you know what else is coming up?
What?
You know what else? What other story? I'm going to be writing this story either this afternoon or tomorrow morning.
I have no idea. This is going to be good.
We got our annual public library garden tour.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, don't think that.
Come on now, that's
don't
nice.
think that just because we raised all the money for the new library that the fundraising is over. It's going to continue. But yeah, no, garden tour, and so I went out and talked to one of the folks that's going to be on the tour. That was an absolute blast, an absolute pleasure. And got to see her garden early, which is also an absolute blast and an absolute pleasure. And there's people out there going, really, garden? It's got to be boring. I'm telling you, the place is gorgeous, and it's worth going and seeing that one. And you know what? I haven't seen the other 3 that are on it. Well, I should say, I haven't seen 2 of the other 3 that are going to be on the garden tour this year, because one of them is the Sand Creek Community Garden up on the just like north portion of the Bethel campus, and that in and of itself is a super cool thing. The community garden, the whole thing. So, but the garden tour is coming, and I got the story behind that garden, yeah, that was a ton of work that was done by someone no longer with us, which is also, that's disappointing, but.
But their handiwork continues on.
Oh yeah, and you know what? It's going to stay for a long time.
And then when you go there, you can see all the effort that person did and contributed with their own hands.
Yes,
that was somebody who was alive, that had memories and thoughts and family and experiences and the whole thing.
Well, and in this particular case, right? So they had an above ground pool in the backyard, and then when the kids all graduated high school and whatever else, they decided they didn't need it, so they ripped that out. And then they went to work making this really amazing space. And so 8, is it 8, 9? Whatever the weekend is, 8, 9, I think.
Okay.
Is all of our opportunity to go see this thing.
Yeah.
And it alone is worth the price of admission for the garden tour.
So not this week, folks, but next weekend.
Right, June 8 and 9.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, Chad, we're coming up to the end of the program. I want to give you the last word, but I want to say something. I want to give my last word before I give you the last word to speak directly to the hearts and the minds of anybody listening, Chad. And it's, Invest in local journalism, folks. The Newton Kansan is the longest standing paper in our community. There's been a lot of people I've heard over time say, oh, that's not a locally owned paper. It is a local paper. It covers local things, and it's credible, reliable. Chad Frey, your Kansan guy, is the main squeeze on that deal. And because I'm such a guy that's for, the digital age, the podcast is digital, the whole thing, subscribe to the Kansan. It's like $5 a month, folks, and you get 12 papers, at least a month. 12 papers for $5. And because I happen to be somebody that moved into having it on my phone or having it on my computer and being able to have a subscription to it in that way, I'm just here to tell you it works. It works. Subscribe to the Kansan. Subscribe to the Kansan. $5, just a little over $5, 12 subscriptions. Support local journalism, folks.
So, Lance, my last word, I'm going to piggyback on yours. To say that we're not locally owned is accurate. However, I don't see that as the reason people cite for not shopping at Walmart. You're still all going down there. While Anderson Office Supply is right there on, Broadway and Main. They're right there. And they've been there almost as long as we've been around. We're 152 years old, by the way. Okay? And while we're not, quote, locally owned, I've been living in this town for darn near 30 years. And I got kids that are attending Newton USD 373. And in these days of declining enrollments, every kid is worth something to our school district. So it's not like you don't have somebody supporting this town.
That's right.
I just saying, okay?
Right.
Just saying. The same can be said for the employees over at Walmart too.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they're paying taxes here.
Yep.
Most of them, right? But there ain't no way that's locally owned. Mm-hmm. And for some odd reason, you're still all marching and you're going in there. And I get it, man. They're cheaper. I get it. But straight up, when I need something, I'm looking at Phil first. And if it's something that he's not gonna have, I'm always looking for something else, something local first.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just straight up, and that goes for Gillespie Meats. I mean,
I concur, Chad.
It's all of them. I don't get to Gillespie's nearly as often as I would like, but c'est la vie. So anyway, there's my last word. We may not be locally owned, but doggone it, don't brand me as not local.
Well, and if you want a reliable, credible, accurate news source for Harvey County, look no further than the Kansan.
So, yep.
Local coverage.
And here's another one.
Local coverage.
Because I know that competition is part of the motivation for you pumping me up and whatever else. I just did.
It's the truth, Chad. I'm not pumping you nowhere. That's what I truly believe in my heart.
So of volume 152, that means for the year that is our 152nd year, I just numbered paper number 110. There is no other publication in Harvey County that puts out 110 editions. And oh, by the way, that volume number isn't going to change for another 3 months. We're going to get up around 150, 156. That's where we're going to get to. And nobody else puts out that number. Just saying.
Well, folks, I will have to say that on this episode of Harvey County Talk, we did not cover everything Harvey County related, but because the world is at your back doorstep, just outside your door, just outside your front window. That's why we went the way we did this week.
Yeah, sure.
Have a good week, everybody.